President Noseda, Madam Chair Puzirev, Mrs. Kuby, ladies and gentlemen. Ich beginne auf Deutsch. Ich hatte eine Rede
Ladies and gentlemen,
vorbereitet
let me start in
zum Thema
German.
der heutigen
I
Veranstaltung.
did have a speech that I
Eine
prepared
Rede,
for
in der
today.
es
It was a speech
eigentlich die
which was
Sicherheit in
supposed
Europa
to be
gehen sollte.
about security in Europe.
Aber ganz ehrlich, ich
But
kann nicht so
to be
beginnen,
honest, I
wie
cannot
ich das
start my
ursprünglich
speech
geplant
in the
hatte.
way that I originally
Ich
intended
bin
to.
überzeugter Transatlantiker,
I am a
leidenschaftlicher
staunch believer
Transatlantiker,
in
ein
the
großer Freund
Transatlantic
Amerikas.
Alliance, and I am a
Der American
staunch
Dream hat
ally
mich
and
schon
friend of
früh
America.
fasziniert und
The American
geprägt.
dream is something that
Und gerade
has always
deswegen kann ich
fascinated me
nicht zur
and
Tagesordnung
influenced
gehen. Gerade
me.
deswegen
And this is
kann
why
ich die
I
Rede,
cannot just
die wir vorhin
ignore
vom
what we heard
US-Vicepräsidenten
before. I
gehört
cannot
haben, nicht
not
unkommentiert
comment on the speech we heard by
Wir
the US
kämpfen
Vice
auch
President.
dafür, dass du gegen uns sein
We
kannst.
fight for your right to be
Das
against
ist das
us.
Selbstverständnis der Bundeswehr.
That is
Und
the
steht
motto, one of the
dafür
mottos
auch
of
für
the
unsere
Bundeswehr,
Demokratie.
and it stands for
Diese
our
Demokratie
democracy.
wurde vom US-Vizepräsidenten
This
für ganz
democracy
Europa
that was
vorhin
just
in Frage
called
gestellt.
into question by the
Er
US
spricht
Vice
von
President, and not just the
annihilation of
German
democracy.
democracy, but Europe as a
Und
whole.
wenn ich ihn richtig verstanden
He
habe,
spoke of the
vergleicht er
annulment of
Zustände in Teilen
democracy, and
Europas
if I
mit denen
understood
in
him
autoritären
correctly,
Regimen.
he compares
Meine Damen und Herren,
the condition
das
of
ist nicht
Europe with the
akzeptabel.
condition that prevails in some authoritarian regimes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not acceptable.
Das ist nicht akzeptabel und das ist nicht das
This is not
Europa.
acceptable. This
Nicht
is
die
not
Demokratie,
the
in der ich
Europe,
lebe
not
und
the
der ich gerade
democracy
Wahlkampf mache.
where I live and where
Das
I
ist nicht die
conduct my
Demokratie,
election
die ich
campaign
in
right
unserem
now. And
Parlament
this is
erlebe.
not the democracy
In dieser Demokratie
that
hat
I
jede
witness
Meinung
every
eine
day
Stimme.
in our parliament.
Sie
In
ermöglicht
our
es in
democracy,
Teilen
every
extremistischen
opinion
Parteien
has
wie
a
der
voice.
AfD
And it
ganz
makes it
normal
possible for
Wahlkampf zu
parties that are partly
Genau wie
extremist,
jede
such
andere
as the
Partei.
AfD,
Das
and
ist
they
Demokratie.
can campaign just as any other party. This is democracy.
Und hätte der Vizepräsident
And if the
gestern
Vice
Gelegenheit gehabt,
President
bei
had
Ankunft
the
den Fernseher
opportunity to
einzuschalten,
switch on his TV
hätte er
set
eine
when he
Spitzenkandidatin
arrived
dieser
last
Partei
yesterday,
zur Primetime im
he
deutschen Fernsehen.
would have seen one of
In
those
unseren Pressekonferenzen
candidates at
werden übrigens auch
in
Medien
primetime
zugelassen, die
TV.
russische Propaganda
By the way,
verbreiten.
we even
Und die Vertreter
admit
der Bundesregierung
media that spread
müssen
Russian
ihm Rede und
propaganda,
Antwort stehen.
and the
Ausgeschlossen wird niemand, nur weil er unser
representatives of the
Wording
federal
nicht teilt.
government answer their questions. Nobody is excluded.
Demokratie bedeutet aber nicht,
But democracy
dass die
does
laute
not
Minderheit
mean that
automatisch Recht hat.
a vociferous
Und die Wahrheit
minority will automatically be
Und Demokratie
right,
muss sich wehren
and they
können
cannot
gegen die
decide what
Extremisten, die
truth
zerstören
is.
wollen.
It does not
Und ich sag's
mean
Ihnen,
that
wie es ist. Ich bin
anyone can
froh,
say anything, and
dankbar
democracy
und
must
stolz,
be
in
able
einem
to defend
Europa zu
itself
leben,
against extremists that
das
try to
diese
destroy
Demokratie
it.
und unsere
I
Art
am
und Freiheit zu
happy
leben
to live
jeden
in
Tag
Europe
verteidigt
where
gegen
this
ihre inneren
democracy
Feinde
is defended
und gegen
every
ihre
day
äußeren.
against its internal and external enemies.
Und deswegen trete ich dem Eindruck,
And therefore,
Vizepräsident Vance erweckt
I
hat,
would like to
energisch entgegen,
explicitly
dass in unserer
contradict and
Demokratie
oppose the
Minderheiten
impression
unterdrückt
that
oder
Vice
zum
President
Schweigen
Vance
gebracht werden.
suggested here that
Wir
our
wissen nicht nur,
democracies
gegen
oppress
wen wir unser Land
and
verteidigen,
silence minorities.
sondern auch wofür.
We not only
Für die
know
Demokratie,
against whom
für
we
die
defend our countries, but
Meinungsfreiheit,
also what we
für den
defend it for.
Rechtsstaat
It's for democracy, for
für die
freedom of
Würde jedes
opinion,
Einzelnen,
for the
meine
rule
Damen
of
und
law, and the dignity of each and every one, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, but unlike the Vice President, I would also like to focus my speech on the most pressing questions of European and transatlantic security. The last days have confirmed what many had speculated for months. The United States are pushing for a quick peace settlement between Russia and Ukraine, and they expect Europe to take the lead in securing any agreement that follows. These negotiations can be a turning point for our continent and for transatlantic relations, a historic turning point that can go into very different directions. The choices we make now will determine whether we live in peace or in crisis. They will determine our future and the future of the next generation in Europe, but also beyond. We must ensure that Ukraine is not left alone, ladies and gentlemen, because one thing remains unchanged. There will be no lasting peace in Europe without a strong and free Ukraine. There will be no sustainable rules-based order if aggression prevails. We must equally make sure that Russia does not emerge from this war as an even bigger threat than before. A fragile peace that only postpones the next war is not an option. Yesterday, there was strong consensus among NATO allies that imperialist powers will only respond to deterrence and strength, be it in Europe or in the Indo-Pacific. Therefore, we must and we will negotiate from a position of strength. Three things are crucial for that. First, European and Ukrainians must play an active part in the negotiations. Only united we will be able to stand strong. Only united will we negotiate a stable and long-lasting peace. Second, Ukraine needs to negotiate from a position of strength. Germany will therefore remain the largest supporter of Ukraine on this continent. And we will continue our engagement in the near future and beyond. Third, the transatlantic alliance must not take anything off the table before the peace talks have even started. Discussions about Ukraine's NATO membership or territorial issues must take place at the negotiating table with careful consideration and in close coordination among allies. At the same time, Secretary Hexet made it very clear that the US will remain engaged in NATO and in Europe. But the recent statements are also a strong reminder of what has been clear for many years, if we are honest. We Europeans have to contribute the lion's share to conventional deterrence and defense in Europe. We need to shape the reality we live in before it shapes us. Yesterday in NATO, we agreed to develop a roadmap. That was my proposal, a roadmap to organize the burden shifting from the US to Europe in the years to come, and to avoid at the same time, by orchestrating it, that we run in capability gaps which are critical. It is time for fewer promises now and more action. That is why my French colleague Sébastien Lecornu and I established the Group of Five together with the United Kingdom, Poland and Italy at the end of last year, to chart a course for a strong Europe. We will use this format to develop the roadmap in the upcoming month and discuss it with our allies, especially with the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to make European responsibility a reality, we are taking strong measures in all important areas of defense, with regards to money, material and operational readiness. Last year, Germany committed 2% of its GDP to defense. Within just 2 years, we nearly doubled our investments in procurement. Other European nations have made similar successful efforts. Security guarantees the future for all of us and for the next generation. We have the responsibility to invest in the future. For Germany, that means further increasing our defense spending. We need substantial financial means that cannot simply be cut out of the current budget. Excluding defense spending from our national debt limit is therefore inevitable. Security is not a short-term expenditure, it is a long-term commitment. That is why I am developing a 10-year program. We need to make defense spending more predictable. That means achieving security next generation. At the European level, we need to act in a similar way. We must ensure that all countries can effectively strengthen their security. That should involve adapting the Maastricht criteria to allow nations that face tight budgetary restrictions a greater flexibility to defense investments. And it would also involve a shift towards defense in the priorities of the European Union's multi-annual financial framework, just as we heard it by Mrs. von der Leyen earlier. More cash, that's the truth, must of course translate into more capabilities. It's not about money, it's about capabilities. Germany launched a defense industry strategy to create the right political, economic and regulatory framework to quickly make our defense industry more innovative, agile, and resilient. We streamlined our procurement processes, and together with industry, we are expanding our production capacities while pushing for a stronger European defense industrial base. Because one thing is certain, Europe needs a strong, more sovereign defense industry. We cannot afford excessive dependencies. This has never been clearer than today, as we see the geopolitical landscape shifting. Maintaining our technological advantage is crucial, particularly in areas such as artificial intelligence, space, and quantum technology. These investments generate positive spillover effects across our entire research landscape and overall economy. We need more European solutions while maintaining strong cooperation with our transatlantic partners. We need both in order to increase our defense capacities as quickly and comprehensively as possible while building and maintaining a strong industrial base. Simply put, we Europeans must develop together, build together, buy together, deploy together, even if that involves adapting and merging certain industries and setting aside national interests in some cases. This requires better coordination of who produces what to avoid duplicating efforts. We have proved that we are capable for this. The European Sky Shield Initiative is an example. The same is true for the European long-range strike approach initiated by Germany and France. And let me mention one more example, the German-Norwegian submarine project. Soon, German crews will be able to sail on Norwegian submarines and vice versa. This is European defense integration in action. We are inviting additional nations to join, also from across the Atlantic. This will boost NATO's naval presence from the shores of the Baltic Sea, across the Atlantic, all the way to the Arctic, which the latter being more and more in the focus of NATO's adversaries. Projects like these are the future of procurement. They show what we can achieve when we act together and overcome national constraints. That brings me to operational readiness. After Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, we have significantly scaled up our efforts to secure NATO's eastern flank. We increased our presence in the air, on land, and at sea. As of this year, 35,000 personnel stand prepared at the highest readiness levels to defend NATO's territory if needed. In Lithuania, we are moving from a rotational to a permanent presence. Together with our allies, we have as many as 1,400 boots on the ground today as part of the multinational battle group Lithuania. We are in the midst of preparing the permanent deployment of a full combat-ready brigade. We will have roughly 5,000 personnel permanently in Lithuania in the years to come. On this note, thank you very much, President Nausėda, for being such an exemplary partner in the historic endeavor. But our commitment on the eastern flank does not and will not stop in Lithuania, also and especially after a potential peace in Ukraine. We are well aware Russia will remain a threat. We are assuming more leadership responsibility in the multinational core, Northeast, to bolster deterrence and defense in the region. This is a true example of our shared commitment to security. Ladies and gentlemen, this week has a week of decision. Next week, it will be the German voters that will make a choice. A lot is at stake in this election. I trust that the German voters will send a strong message. Germany will remain a reliable ally. Germany will continue to work towards a stronger and more secure Europe. And Germany will continue to take on more responsibility and leadership in Europe. The challenges of the coming months and years will be enormous, but so is our ability to tackle them. As long as we stand together, as long as we remain committed to our security and our values of liberal democracy, I have no doubt the future is ours to shape. Thank you.